huge. The United States put serious sanctions on Russia, but these aren't just little sanctions. This is huge. We cut off Russia's ability to transfer funds from nation to nation, taking away their foreign exchange by taking away the dollar and the EU. It has put Russia's stock market in a tailspin and an absolute crash and massive confusion. And the Russians are threatening war or retaliation. I'm going to tell you all about that in just a second. This seems very loud, and I don't know if it's because I've turned a knob accidentally, so I might have turned it down too much. I don't know. Hopefully that's about right, okay? Hopefully that's about right. Okay. I made a mistake in my last video about Easy Summer Cool. I was talking about the little cooler, the little AC unit you put next to you at your bedside or on your office desk, wherever you may be in an office. But I showed you the wrong. I showed you the little gadget. Okay, that's not the right thing. It's the coolant. Now let me show you what I mean by that. I want to fix that. Sweltering heat, boy, and I'll tell you how I remembered. It got hot in here. Sweltering heat, record high temperatures, and very costly energy bills are all around the corner. Unfortunately, many households won't be able to keep up. 34 million households have reported difficulty in paying their utility bills in last winter, and of course, expectation the heat of the summer. They've even kept their house at unsafe temperatures, either extremely too cold or extremely too hot. This is why I'm preparing for heat with the help of this amazing device. And I'm going to show it to you. When I get back home, I have one for my desk. Right here it is. This is this little AC mini coolant. This thing right here is incredible. You will not believe how much cool air this thing throws and how quickly it will cool a small room at your office. And it's perfect at your bedside when you're sleeping at night. It's perfect, okay? Guys, this makes a great Father's Day gift. It's a perfect gift for Dad. Make yourself as happy and as cool and make Dad happy by going to www.easysummercool.com. That's www.easysummercool.com. You'll be glad you did. Now, let me tell you what's going on, and then wait till you hear the threat from Russia's military. And guys, think about this. We did this with Russia sitting at the docks in Cuba with nuclear submarines and warships and frigates with hypersonic missiles on them. Then we decide to go and turn off the dollar and the euro and crash their markets. I mean, what? It's like we're poking the bear. Let's be honest. We're doing more than poking the bear. We're jack slapping the bear. And you don't expect Putin to just take this without responding. Now, here's the deal. Russia halts the foreign exchange trading. They had to shut down their entire foreign exchange trading system. Because of United States has sown serious confusion. According to reports here, and just within the hour, Russia's main exchange has halted trading in dollars and euros after this sharp escalation in the U.S. sanctions targeting the remaining links between Russia's financial system and foreign banks. Russia's central bank said exchange rates for the ruble will now reflect interbank transactions after U.S. sanctions announced today on the Moscow exchange. Russia's oldest marketplace has forced the trades off the central market. They had to shut it down. This means the changes mean that the pricing of the ruble will become more oblique, affecting its convertibility and raising cost for importers and exporters after sweeping sanctions that the U.S. Treasury described as targeting Russia's war economy. For banks in the countries from China to Turkey, there are still transacting with China. The banks from China to Turkey, they're still making transactions with Russia. The measures has raised, though, the risk The so-called secondary sanctions will cut them off from the U.S. financial system, such as losing access to the U.S. dollar. Imagine a medieval town where the central market shuts down. There will still be farmers looking to sell the food and the villagers still looking to buy. They just have to go find them on the street corner or over in the field, and instead of going through the normal market exchange. And this becomes an extremely difficult task for people, okay? And this is what is going to happen and is happening right now in Russia. There was still demand for dollars and euros, but it would be harder for buyers and sellers of foreign currencies to find each other now, which would make every transaction more expensive and reduce the transparency of the Russian economy. In other words, you're taking a risk if you're buying or selling with Russia. After the transactions announcement, some banks offered to sell dollars for the ruble compared with most recent rates, but currently most banks are selling the American currency. An analyst at Moscow-based BCS Express, one of Russia's largest brokers, expect the ruble to fall about 5% by tomorrow, which is a huge currency drop, okay? The spreads between buying and selling prices of the dollar of the Sberbank, Russia's main state bank lender, more than doubled, compared to pre-sanction levels, increasing from where they were at. So, okay, this is a big deal. We basically have crippled Russia's ability to do business outside of Russia, okay, because they can't use the dollar or the euro for exchange rates, and that shuts down a lot of business. Now, besides that, Russia's response is ugly, and this just happened. Russians are being told to mobilize, to inflict maximum harm on the West in response to these sanctions. One of Russia's top security officials today has called for the Russians to mobilize to inflict maximum harm on Western societies. Tough sanctions being imposed on Moscow by the United States and its European allies. The statement was by Dmitry Medvedev. He's the former president of the country. He's right now the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council and Vladimir Putin's predecessor as president. He came as the West sharply escalated sanctions on Moscow in efforts to degrade its ability to wage war in Ukraine. We need to respond, former President Dmitry Medvedev said. Not only the authorities, the state, but all our Russian people in general. After all, the United States and its crappy allies, he said, have declared a war on us without rules. Medvedev wrote on his official Telegram channel, and he has over 1.3 million followers. Every day we should try and do maximum harm to those countries that have imposed these restrictions, harm their economies, their institutions, and their rulers, harm their well-being of their citizens, their confidence in the future. Diplomats say that Medvedev gives a flavor of hardline, high-level thinking in the Kremlin, though Kiev and Kremlin critics play down his influence, casting him as a scaremonger whose job is to deter Western actions over Ukraine. In his latest comments, though, he spoke of the need to find critical vulnerabilities in the Western economies, to target their energy, their industries, their transportation, their banking, and their social services, to stir up social tension. So he is calling on terrorism tactics against the United States any way possible. He's calling on the military to do it. He's calling on the government of Russia to do it. He's calling on the everyday citizen to do it. To do whatever you want to do to inflict pain on the United States and its allies or the European Union, for that, for most, including the UK and probably Canada and probably Australia, New Zealand, and maybe even Israel, and Lord knows who else. Western officials have already spoken about suspected Russian sabotage activities across the West, including arson, with some calling for Russian diplomat movements to be curbed. The Kremlin, which said today it was considering retaliatory action against the United States that would best suit Moscow's own interests. And the Russian Foreign Ministry have rejected the sabotage allegations as false. But Medvedev, the former president of Russia, who's right now the head of the Security Council there, who styled himself as a Western-friendly liberal back when he was president of Russia in 2008 to 2012, his presidency, before reinventing himself as one of the Kremlin's toughest hawks, spoke of the need to step up an information war against the West. Are they screaming about our use of fake news? Let's turn their lives into a crazy nightmare in which they can't distinguish wild fiction from the realities of the day. Let's his infernal evil from the routine of life, he wrote. Let's infernal evil. Medvedev also called for Russia to weaponize space, to arm the West's enemies. Well, they're already doing that. They arm the Iranians, the Syrians. I mean, everybody, anybody and everybody. But he says, let's go. And he's saying, weaponize space. Arm our Western enemies as the new U.S. sanctions force Russia's leading exchange to halt the dollar and the euro trading in Russia, obscuring the access to reliable pricing for Russian currency. Other new U.S. measures included targeting the China-based firms selling semiconductors to Moscow, and to move to raise the risk of secondary sanctions for foreign financial institutions and that deal with Russia's war economy, effectively threatening them with losing access to all U.S. financial systems. A group of 7 leaders were meanwhile gathered at the G7, their annual summit in Italy right now, and look likely to announce that they have agreed, at least in principle, on plans to issue $50 billion worth of loans for Ukraine using interest from frozen Russian sovereign assets to back the multi-year debt package. This is insane. So the G7 that's sitting over there, which is, off the top of my head, I'll try to remember. United States, France, Germany, Great Britain, Canada, Italy, and there's one more, can't think, and plus several other MBS. Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia is there, as well as Japan. Japan's number 7, and also South Africa is there. Okay, so and several other little countries. So they're all there at the G7. So at this meeting, they decided to go ahead and cancel the foreign exchange system that relies on the petrodollar, the United States dollar, and the euro, to make it that anybody in Russia right now who's trying to buy or sell something can't use their currency's flow through the U.S. Or euro standard. They just have to try to go ruble to whoever they're selling to, and that's not a stable currency, and people don't trust the Russian currency. And the reason they don't is because of the mafia mentality that the Kremlin has. Now, I'm not saying America doesn't have a mafia mentality in our institutions. But you can still count on the U.S. system. You know it's legit. You know it will be there. You know it is consistent. You're not going to get burned with the currency exchanges. But if you have to play through the Russian deal, you don't know what you send $10,000 through Russia. You don't know if it's still going to be worth 10 grand when it hits there, or if it's going to be worth 6 grand. You don't know. Whatever they say it is, and because there's no baseline now. Okay, there's no baseline. This is what we're talking about. So that means people are going to just stop doing business with Russia instantly. And that means Russia can't do business with other people that they've been doing business with. And that means the Russian stock exchange crashed. They had to shut it down before it completely crashed. And now the ruble is unstable. Now, if you're asking me if World War III has begun, my answer is it probably begun 2 years ago. And now you're getting ready to see it go from sanctions and cyber attacks and cheap shots and backroom backstabbing and taking people hostage from each country and throwing them in prison. We're getting ready to go from that world to actual military threats. And even though Putin has been making a lot of military threats, they are angry now. Okay, so to be honest with you, Joe Biden really did more than poke the bear this time. He jackslapped the bear. Okay, he jackslapped the bear with this one, and he didn't do it alone. He did it with the whole G7 and its allies and the entire European Union. And so now the question is, what does Russia, China, Iran, probably Turkey, and maybe a few other nations, what will they do now? And will war be launched on Europe? Do we want a war? I've been thinking a lot about this. I just really wish I could go back and see what would have happened if Trump had remained in office. He was willing to sit down with the Russians and work out comparable agreements and understandings between the peoples, and certainly not threaten each other with war or brutal economic sanctions. I doubt very seriously, I'd almost guarantee Putin would not have invaded Ukraine these last 4 years like he has done. I almost guarantee it, because Trump pretty well was going to say, look, here's the deal. As long as you don't do these things, you don't go after Ukraine, as long as you don't go after Europe, I'm going to make things financially more favorable for you. We can work together. And then Trump would have continued the relationship with China. He would have continued to say to China, look, you don't want no part of Taiwan, okay? It doesn't make sense for you. It doesn't make sense for us. Leave them alone, and let's continue to work on our business. Let's work on working together in a peaceable world. I can almost guarantee you that China would not have done this blockade around Taiwan. And I can almost 1,000% guarantee you that Hamas would have not come over the fences, and they would have not slaughtered 1,200 Jews and did the horrific, wicked, awful, unthinkable things to the people. And we would not be in a war right now in Gaza, because they would have never even attempted this. This would have been a peaceful prosperity. We had it for the 4 years under Trump till the pandemic hit. We had the most incredible peace and prosperity in the world that we've ever had. I can also guarantee you that we would not have left Afghanistan the way the debacle that Biden administration left Afghanistan, with people falling off airplanes and over 2,000 Americans left stranded in Afghanistan, and breaking our word to all of those Afghani interpreters who helped us during all those wars. We would have not have ended it. There wouldn't have been 13 Americans killed at the airport there in Kabul, and we wouldn't have had this. And Taliban would not be in control of Afghanistan right now. They would not be in control of that government. I could guarantee you that wouldn't have happened. So you just think about what all has taken place. Look at and I can guarantee you our inflation rate would not be as high as it is. I can guarantee that the price of oil and the price of gas would not have doubled. I could guarantee your utility bills would have never been soaring to what they are now. I could have guaranteed you that the interest rate would have never been where it is right now. I can guarantee to you that your ability to buy homes and the banking institutions would not be requiring 20% from you instead of 10. I could guarantee you that this would have been a whole different situation with a conservative approach to peace and prosperity. Now to get untangled out of this mess that we're in is going to require some incredible negotiating, and now we won't be negotiating at as in a good faith position as we could have been. But I think that Trump could still get in there and could stop the war with Russia. I think he could slow down the Chinese. I think he could end the Middle East conflict. I do think he would slash gas prices within 18 months. It'd probably be back under $2 a gallon again. Inflation would fall drastically. Jobs would increase. And the world would be coming much closer to peace and prosperity. Now, there is scripture that says when they do say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh. And I'm starting to wonder, is that what happened when the current administration took over? This was the most peaceful, prosperous time in the history of the world. And since this new administration's come in, all hell is broke loose. And so, and now it's about ready to. I mean, can you imagine what I'm reading? Did you hear what I just read to you? Russia told Russia says to their people to mobilize, to the military to mobilize, to inflict maximum pain, and not just the military, but every citizen. I mean, this is crazy. This is like a jihad thing, and so expect it. And here's this: the worst timing ever is with Russia setting in Cuba, and that's another thing. Russia wouldn't be at Cuba right now. They wouldn't have nuclear submarines and frigates with hypersonic missiles setting off the dock of Cuba right now. That would have not have happened. They would have never done it. And surely they wouldn't be talking about space wars, Star Wars, weaponizing of space. So when I think about the dreams I've had, the dream of the Russian dread that I saw in the faces of the diplomats at some kind of meeting, I don't know where it was at, but the Americans and the world even, the blood had run out of their faces in the state. They were crawling in fetal position in dread over the fact that Russia had released a new weapon that we had no idea they had, and it was the most dreadful thing of all. I had that dream. I shared that dream with you. We put that on Patreon. It's still there. I even saw the uniforms they were wearing. These new, weird uniforms. They were protective of biological weapons and protective of radiation that they were wearing. Okay? And I even showed you guys that. And Mike saw it and said that those uniforms actually do exist. And they're in the prototype phase right now. And then this recent dream I had, again, about Russia really inflicting some brutal things upon the world. And, of course, the vision I had of Revelation 9:11. This right here, Revelation 9:11. Sorry, that's 50 shekels. I use that as a bookmark. Sorry. This book, Revelation 9:11, and how God said it's about to happen. I'm going to read it to you. I'm just going to read. Can I just read just a little bit of it? This is what the Lord told. Look, the Lord spoke to me and said, "It's upon mankind. Go warn the people. Publish it." So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. This is from the introduction. The hour is coming. It is upon mankind. They had a king over them, the angel of the abyss, of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in the Greek is Apollyon, that is, the destroyer. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 11. While praying and meditating on the book of Revelation in July of 2021, I, Paul Begley, was moved by the Spirit into an open vision that revealed a series of mind-blowing apocalyptic events unparalleled in human history was approaching. These events foretold in the Bible will so shake the world that the Apostle Luke foresaw people's hearts failing them for fear and the expectation of those things which were coming on the earth. And you can read that in Luke 21:26. In the vision, I saw a huge sign with red letters that said Revelation 9:11. Then the Lord said to me, Revelation 9:11, it's about to happen. Warn the people. So I picked up my Bible and I read Revelation chapter 9. And as I did, I realized that this often overlooked chapter tells the story of a key being given to the angel who uses it to open the abyss, the bottomless pit, in which the worst of the beings ever cast out of heaven alongside Lucifer had been chained. The 11th verse calls for the king who comes out of this pit, Abaddon or Apollyon. In Greek, Apollyon means destroyer. Abaddon in Hebrew means the place of destruction. When I read this, I said, okay, this hasn't happened yet. I know Revelation tells us there's some 7 seals and 7 trumpets and 7 vials of God's judgment poured upon the world. And I know the events in this book are not necessarily presented in chronological order. So where does this fit? The urgency of this message began to weigh heavily on me. I hadn't felt this kind of prophetic intensity in my spirit since the terrorist attacks of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon that killed several thousand people on September 11th, 2001. I felt compelled to warn the world of what the Lord had shown me. And then the Lord said to me, the hour is coming. The hour is coming. It is upon mankind. And then I continue to write on about the coming storm and the great reset and Agenda 2030 and under the shadow of the Almighty and the revival or judgment. This is all part of my introduction, which in itself is a great read, even before you get into the rest of the book. But if you haven't got a copy of this book, I'm saying today, I'm really heavily saying this. Get a copy today. Order your copy from Amazon.com and get it now. And if you can, order 5 copies. 1 for you. Give 4 of them away. Get it done. The hour is upon us. And when I read this news account just a minute ago, that United States had shut down Russia's ability to use the dollar or the euro for foreign exchange, which has basically crippled the Russian trade market. Russia's response was they had to shut their market down immediately. It's caused mass confusion on the value of the currency now of the ruble. And Dmitry Medvedevich, the former president, he declared war. He said the military needs to do something. We need to inflict maximum harm on the Americans and their allies, and not just the military, but we need to do it in every aspect, including everyday citizen. Inflict every day maximum harm on the Americans and their allies. I mean, this wasn't Vladimir Putin declaring war on us. It was Medvedevich doing it. But I'm telling you, and this all came out of that G7 summit, because that's where they're at right now. And it wasn't just the U.S. that did this. It was the U.S. and their allies, which was the entire G7 plus the rest of the European Union. And who's the G7 is, of course, the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Canada, Japan, and Australia, I think. I'm forgetting one. And, Italy. Excuse me, Italy. So let's do that again. United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and Canada. Those 7 plus several others, including Saudi Arabia, and South Africa. And then you could probably expand that among Western nations. And This is huge. So we'll be talking to Mike from around the world about this tonight. I mean, this is huge, huge, huge. Again, this just in. Don't miss tonight's broadcast because we're at the brink of war now. You've heard the term, but when you cripple a monster, when you not poke the bear, but when you jackslap the bear, maybe even drive a dagger into his foot, you maim him. When you do this to this bear, this changes the game. And that's the words we're hearing on a world stage right now. And I'm not talking about just any, this is, I just read that article. That's Reuters. CNN. The new U.S. sanctions force the end of the dollar and the euro trading in Russia. Washington Post. Russia's financial system is shaken after U.S. imposes these new sanctions. Wall Street Journal. Russia suspends the dollar and the euro trade on their flagship stock exchange. Yahoo News. Russia told to mobilize to inflict maximum harm on the West in response to the sanctions on their currency. U.S. expands the sanctions on Russia along with the G7 leaders. Russia halts their foreign exchange, and that was New York Times. The Financial Times says Russia halts its foreign exchange trading as U.S. sanctions sow massive confusion. It just goes on and on and on. So don't miss tonight's broadcast. Mike from around the world. It's going to be huge. I'm also going to bring on another guest. I'll let you know who that is. Don't miss this broadcast. 9 p.m. Eastern. Whatever you do, don't miss it. Okay? Don't. Are you serious? Are you saved? Give your life to Jesus Christ. Last night I was on American Family Radio, okay, for an hour, and they were interviewing me about Revelation 9:11 and everything going on, and I guess the reviews was great. It was a great program. I have to give Alex McFarland, who was actually sitting in for Abe Hamilton, and this was on the Hamilton Corner. Alex McFarland was co-host or was substitute hosting. Man, he's sharp, and it just was a great broadcast. I'll be back, guys. If you haven't heard it, you can just go online to American Family Radio and look up the Hamilton Corner, and you can click and you can listen to that podcast. It's available now. God bless.